All right, let's talk about this. We've been quiet for way too long. We have done you all a huge disservice. A lot of you are angry, and rightfully so. Let's talk about the state of Sinclair's library. First things first. This is the closest you're ever going to get to a YouTube apology video from me. I'm not looking for sympathy here. What I'm doing here is delivering information that we should have been a lot more upfront about a while back that you deserve to know. For some background, just in case you don't know what I'm talking about, 2 years ago, my community and the Pathfinder community at large helped fund Sinclair's Library, a Kickstarter which promised 2 new books for the Pathfinder 2nd Edition system, one full of new character options and one full of NPCs you can plug and play into your game. The Kickstarter blew us away. We raised over $140,000 and hoped to get both books out, at least digitally, by the end of that year. Fast forward to 2024, 2 years later, and all we have to show so far is a completed digital copy of the Pathfinder version of the Almanac and no proven copy of the Codex yet. A lot has happened over these past 2 years. I'm going to go a little bit step by step, both from the perspective of the company and from the perspective of me as well. Up front, I want to say that No Nat 1s and Sinclair's Library are not the same entity. No Nat 1s is affiliated with Sinclair's Library, but myself, No Nat, is not Sinclair's Library. I'm often the face of it, used for marketing, and that might have confused a few people. It is definitely partially my project. I am a co-owner, but it is not related to the No Nat 1s channel. The reason I bring that up is because a lot of people were concerned when I switched to City of Heroes for a while a few months back, and then when I took a hiatus from creating content altogether, a lot of people think that we just ran away with the money for Sinclair's. I can promise you that is not the case. Just because the No Nat 1's channel turned away from Pathfinder 2e for a while does not mean that Sinclair's Library stopped working on the project. So, let me take you step by step through the history of the project so far, where a lot of the major pitfalls were, and most importantly, where we are now. So the first 6 months to a year of the project went fairly swimmingly. Like I said, our original goal was something like $40,000, and we beat that by over $100,000. We hired a bunch of freelancers, we hired a bunch of artists, we hired a few editors, and really got to work on this project, writing out the skeleton for everything, and our first and foremost focus was getting artwork done of all of our major topics, especially the big fancy splash arts. Amazing artwork like this, that was on the GM screen. We budgeted all of the $140,000 in a way that made sense to us, but of course, none of us, the 3 leads of Sinclair's, had ever run a business before, and we made some very obvious, in retrospect, mistakes when planning our budget. Namely, we didn't leave any budget for in case things went wrong. We had a budget for our writers, our artists, our editors, and our formatters. And that was perfect. This would leave us just enough money to give a little bit to the 3 co-owners of the business. And when I mean a little bit, I mean a little bit. I think I can openly say I think I was paid $2,000 total. So, in our budgeting, we had just enough money to make the project happen if nothing went wrong. And if you have ever opened or run a business of any scale, you know something goes wrong. Rewrites, scrapped contents, and a lot of really big expensive mistakes that I'm not going into detail of right now. At the end of the day, everything that happened, every mistake, is on us. We are the owners of the company, and any mistake that happens to the company falls on us. For that, we are sorry. Again, not asking for sympathy, simply apologizing for not keeping you informed. The silver lining of all of this is that it was a massive learning experience for me and the other co-owners of Sinclair's. The downside is that learning those lessons came at the expense of massive delays and issues with the budget. So during all this time, even though we had many freelancers and artists and editors all working under Sinclair's only actually has 4 full-time employees, and I use the term employee as a bit of a stretch. There was myself, who was the head of marketing. Like I said, we used the No Nat 1's channel as a bouncing off point for the project. It helped get a lot of snowballs rolling, and I did advertising plugs on the channel for the project. There was Nathan, our creative lead, who handled everything on the business side, as well as doing a huge chunk of designing the skeleton, as well as some of the bigger things like the whole Thanator class for the Almanac. There was Tabletop Obscura, our lead designer, who designed so much of what you see in that book. Nathan and Tabletop Obscura were both responsible for most of the designs that weren't done by freelancers. And of course, I would be remiss not to mention our incredible artistic director, Nathaniel Himawan, who did the front covers and so much of the incredible artwork you see in this book. I can say for a fact that we don't regret for a second the money we spent on the artwork. We got our value out of what we spent. We hit a point in 2023 where the $140,000 was mostly gone. A huge chunk of it primarily spent on the high quality artwork and then also on the freelancers and editors. We didn't have much left. Back in 2023, we were already running on fumes. Nathan and Tabletop Obscura were both working full-time, being paid by what we had left of the Kickstarter income to work on the book. These two were the ones doing most of the work at this point, especially in the back half of 2023. And we've effectively reached a point where they're the only two able to work on the project right now. I'm not going to go into huge detail here. I made a whole video about it. There will be a link in the description if you want to. 2023 was the worst year of my personal life. It's not an excuse, but I was not able to work on the project whatsoever due to everything that had come up in my life. Like I said, I made a video. If you want to know more, check it out. Not an excuse, just a fact. As it currently stands, the Pathfinder 2nd edition version of the Almanac has been done and uploaded on BackerKit for anybody to download. You can also get it on the website. If you've purchased it there, you should be able to go to your account and download the completed Pathfinder 2nd edition version of Sinclair's Almanac right now. The 5th edition version is being finalized. The problem is that the person responsible for working on the Codex is also the person finalizing the 5th edition version of the Almanac. Like I said, we effectively only have a 2-person staff, and once those final fumes of the Kickstarter income ran dry, it became work on a volunteer basis. Nathan and Obscura both had to get real jobs, full-time jobs to support their lives, to pay their rent, to pay their bills, to exist. So in going from working on this project 30 to 40 hours a week down to maybe 5 or 6 hours a week has hung us up massively. So that is where Sinclair's library stands at the current moment. 2e Almanac is done, 5e Almanac is almost done, and then the Codex needs to be finished. The Codex has had tons of work done on it, but it is not nearly as close to finished as the Almanac is, and has been our second priority behind the Almanac, since we figured people would want their player character options first before getting a book of characters. On the upside, the Codex is going to be a lot quicker to finish because it's not coming up with completely unique content and material for the game. It is just creating characters using the game's structure. All the artwork for those characters is done, and they just need to be statted and written and lored out. So hopefully the Codex won't take nearly as long to finish as the Almanac did. But as it stands, there's 2 people working on this project on a volunteer basis right now. But we are working. I can show you some stills. I'll get in contact with the creative lead, show you some recent stuff we've been working on to prove it has been done. I'm going to try to be better about updating the Kickstarter, as our creative lead's life has been incredibly busy, as everyone's is these days. We have not posted an update to the Kickstarter since December of 2023, and once again, I apologize. It's a mistake on our part. But if you take anything away from this video, please take this. We are going to finish this project. It won't be tomorrow, it won't be next week, it won't be next month. But we are committed and dedicated to finishing these books, shipping them out, and getting them in your hands. Thank you for your patience. We don't really deserve it at this point, but for those of you who have still been waiting patiently, it means the world to us. If you want to know more, there is a link at the top of the description to the Sinclair's Library Discord server. It is the single best place to ask for information regarding it. However, I have been asked to specifically state harassment and hatred will not be tolerated. Questions are fine, but if you are insulting our character or anybody else in the server as part of your complaint or your question, it will not be tolerated. Please be civil. We will answer any questions you have as long as they are phrased civilly. And that's about all there is to be said on the matter. We are working, but we will get those books in your hands someday. We promise.